Hello, everyone. Welcome to what must be, at this point, the hottest new tabletop role-playing game interview show in the business, or at least interview shows that are a subsection of actual play shows that have only been around for a few months. There's a lot of caveats. There's like asterisk after asterisk on that particular opener, which, now that I think about it, is the perfect introduction, because this week on Reckless Talk, our twice monthly interview series where we talk with TTRPG professionals and personalities and creators, this week we have Sophie off of Reckless Attack. Sophie and I have known each other for a long time, but not really known each other for the majority of that. She was my wife's college best friend who I really enjoyed being around, but wasn't super close with. And then one day she answered a Facebook reach out on behalf of her then boyfriend, David. She stole my heart with a half-orc barbarian named Umbra Bearclaw, and the rest is history. Sophie has become one of my absolute favorite people, both on and off the table. She is bright, passionate, kind, so frickin' funny. She's just a true delight in all things and in all ways. In this episode, Sophie and I talk a little bit about finding your character, gaming with her partner, growing into a challenge, being yourself in and out of character, and being a Travis at the table. You guys are going to love it, and we will see you back here on Tuesday for our next episode of Reckless Attack. Thanks. Hello, Sophie.
Hey, Nathan.
How are you doing this lovely evening?
I'm so tired.
Me too. Yeah, it's already been a week, but we're here, and that's pretty exciting. And we will bring a different kind of energy, not the kind of like hyper manic energy, but the energy of intention.
Cozy intention.
Ooh, yeah, that's like that. I like that, especially because our intro music has that little like fireplace crackle.
Yeah.
So, you know, that'll be the vibes. Is
Listeners, we're in front of a fireplace with two hot toddies. I'm sorry, I don't know what drink you're drinking. I'm drinking a hot
No,
toddy,
that sounds
clearly.
great. You ordered for the table, and you know, then you realize like, ooh, I'm sorry. Like, is that what you wanted? And you're like, you know what, Sophie? That is exactly what I wanted. Thank you. Please, listener, pull up an overstuffed chair next to this roaring fire with us as we have yet another wonderful episode of Reckless Talk. Sophie, thank you for joining.
Yeah.
I am super excited to chat with you here. And part of that is because, well, for a lot of reasons. First of all, of the people on this podcast that I talk to generally, but especially about role-playing games, you are definitely the one that I do so less frequently of everyone, in that I am constantly talking with Jonathan and David about whatever nonsense, podcast or otherwise. Steve is always excited to talk about all his decades of experience, and it just like pours out of his mouth in a way that is both wonderful, but also, you know, omnipresent.
Right.
I don't often get to just like sit and kind of like go through the nitty gritty of tabletop stuff with you, even if it's not the like same types of nitty gritty, we'll say, as your husband and his brother might be getting into.
I'm definitely not getting into the nitty gritty of this angst.
No. If it helps, I am not either. I am observing their nitty gritty, and I am respecting it. I'm saying, wow, thank God you are doing it.
Right. I deeply appreciate them going headfirst into the deep end and all of that. And then I get a delightful summary from David.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's all I needed.
But also, I am excited to talk to you a little bit just because our own relationship and friendship over the years has changed in very fun and cool ways.
Yeah.
And it's been really delightful getting to know you kind of around the table and just generally. And so I'm excited to kind of talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah.
But since we are a D&D podcast, I wanted to start a little bit in that realm of things. So I know a little bit about how you kind of got started, in that I know Jonathan's talked about it a little bit and David has talked about it a little bit, and just I vaguely know about it. But how did you get introduced to tabletop role-playing games?
I got introduced to tabletop role-playing games because I was dating a guy who was interested in them and was like trying to form a group. I think Jonathan wanted to run a game of Pathfinder.
I think so, yeah, or something.
I feel so bad. I feel so bad, and I'm so grateful to Jonathan because Pathfinder is incredibly complicated.
Yes.
And I will never understand confirming a crit. I don't get it. I'm mad about it.
Yeah.
And I'm not mad about it. It's just I have a lot of don't get me drunk and have me talk about Pathfinder because I have some things to say.
Some opinions and some emotions tied up. Especially I could see confirming crits. When you sit down, you roll a 20 or a high number. For me, I want to feel that immediately and just be like, it's a 20. The celebration starts now.
Exactly.
And then anything in addition to that is immediately detracting from the experience.
Yeah. And I get why Pathfinder had to do everything's so overpowered in Pathfinder. And that is one thing that is great about Pathfinder is like so much crazy shit happens.
Yes. But so Jonathan was putting together a game.
Yes.
And was that you coming in relatively fresh where like you were vaguely aware of D&D?
Yeah.
Or you know, how new were these ideas to you at that time?
They were fairly new. Like I knew what Dungeons and Dragons was.
Yeah.
David definitely had to explain that Pathfinder was like Dungeons and Dragons, but not.
Classic sales pitch.
Yeah. And then in high school, I was part of the nerd club. Like that was an actual club.
It was just called the nerd club?
Yeah. And it was just like more like a safe space where like anybody could come and like find people who wanted to play this game. But everyone was playing Magic and I was like, this is complicated. And I was like, I really like this horse card. Can I have it? And they're like, yeah, sure. It doesn't do anything. And I was like, great, I have a horse card.
Great, I have one horse card. The Magic collection has begun. I can play now, right?
Magic was really like the game everybody was into at that. But so I didn't really have a TTRPG.
Yeah, there was no adjacent thing going on. Got it.
I had never been to the Dice Dojo. I didn't know who Steve was.
No, you're right. Yeah, the legendary Dice Dojo figure, Steve, as I'm sure is definitely the case. How did it get described to you in that, like, here's what D&D or what, like, Pathfinder or what this experience is going to be like?
I don't remember exactly, but knowing David, he focused on the technical side of it of like, you're going to build this character, it's going to have stats, and there will be a story, is basically probably how it was.
Yep, cool.
And I definitely went into it being like, I really like this guy. We should have like a common thing together. And it's like, yeah, sure. You know, be open to new experiences. And I remember at that point in my life, I was like, I'm going to be honest with him if I don't like this. And like, I'm not going to rope myself into like a weekly 4-hour evening if I don't like it.
Yeah, right. You have other things to do. And while you like David, do you 4 hours a week like him? Not like that.
I mean, I do like him like that. I would. But I'm very glad I liked it and I didn't have to pretend
exactly
that I was there for 4 hours.
Sophie, if this is the safe space you need right now to say like, actually all of this is terrible, please no more, you can say that and this can turn into instead your like Reckless Attack send off and be like, guys, I appreciated the couple, the dozen and some episodes that we did and that was cool, but like I actually don't like this, so you can do that if you need to.
No need. Okay, I do. I really like D&D way better than Pathfinder.
So other than being able to just sit and stare at your beautiful now husband for several hours over the course of once a week or whatever, and occasionally throw dice around, was there a moment for you where one thing I really love about playing with new players is that moment where they like realize like, oh, wait a second. Wait, I can do anything. Or there's always a switch that flips where they realize like, oh, I'm into this. Do you remember a specific time or moment that like you went from, oh, I'm trying this and I'll see what it is, and oh, this is fun and fine, to kind of getting more on the path of where you are now as someone who, well, plays in a podcast, but plays regularly and enjoys playing?
There's not one moment that really stands out. I am a slow mover in a lot of things. I like to joke about it with David all the time. It's like, I'm going to take my time. I'm going to figure out what I want.
Yep.
And so I need to like spend time doing it. And I think the Pathfinder game was really like where I said, no, I do like this. And this is a lot of fun. I think it really helped that we had a great group of people. I've now realized I'm usually the only woman there, except for Mary, sometimes Kay. Love you. Thank you for being there.
Thank you, guys.
Like you gals. But yeah, I think that really helped too. And it's just, I think David explained it really well where he likes it, where it's really fun to hang out, but sometimes there's a lot of social anxiety if you don't have an activity.
Absolutely. Yes.
And after he explained that to me, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So you can come together as a group and you have a lot of side conversations and like catch up about life. But then you also have structure to your socialization, which is very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely the same for me of like, I like making up stories and I like, the drama and all that kind of stuff. But also it's nice just having a thing with friends that is regular and like, oh, we're all having fun and having a nice time. Great, cool. Yeah, absolutely. We have a reason to be doing this.
Exactly.
And a structure around it. Do you remember what your first character was?
A ranger.
Mm-hmm.
Her name started with an A. I
Left
have
a big
the character
impression.
sheet somewhere. She was a ranger, and Jonathan gave me a big bird. I don't remember the bird's name either. I feel really bad. But I was basically just like a sniper
My
in the
brain
sky with my big bird.
Absolutely just auto-filled the Sesame Street Big Bird when you said that. And just like there's this flash of like Big Bird in battle paint. And I got totally thrown off. So do you remember how long that went on? Like how long you guys played that?
Maybe like a year.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't remember.
Yeah, I'm horrible with dates as well.
I don't know.
So
there was a stretch of time.
The Zhang twins were living together on the Humboldt apartment. I can tell you that.
Yes.
It took place like solely in that apartment, nowhere else.
Only.
Yeah.
That was the gestation, the pressure cooker of that particular campaign. What in that, I'm trying to figure out the right way to phrase it because tired brain.
The hot toddy too,
And the hot toddy, exactly. You've now been playing tabletop role-playing games for quite a while now, obviously. And you've been playing since roughly when you and David started going out.
6 years, yeah.
whatever that timeline is. Obviously, your relationship with it has progressed beyond the I'm spending time with David. What part about playing role-playing games and gathering around the table or any of kind of the experience of playing D&D, etc., do you particularly enjoy? Like, what is the, do you have a good sense for you what gets those kind of gears turning?
My initial thought was like the same reason I play The Sims, just like creation of like, I want to build something, whether that be a story or a character. I do love character creation and like figuring out the backstory of the person. And I slightly get into the mechanics a little bit more and more, but honestly, if it doesn't work in D&D Beyond, I'm not looking at the Reddit threads.
You get into it enough to be ready on your turn and know basically what you need to do, but there's a line. I absolutely understand that.
Yeah, so I just really, I think, enjoy more the collaboration of I like building something myself where I can like chat you and be like, hey, I have this desk of doing.
Yeah, right.
Let's do this. But then everything becomes greater when somebody else takes that and adds to it, and we have chance thrown into it with the dice rolls and oh, well, fuck, we're not doing that, I guess.
I guess that's happening a little differently than we had anticipated. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think especially with the right group of people, it's a really chaotic but fun story that you create together.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you mentioned creating characters because that's something I wanted to spend a lot of time talking with you about for a lot of reasons. A, just because it's always a cool thing and I like talking to everyone about like, how do you build characters or how do you build campaigns, whatever. But throughout both campaigns that we've played together and one-shots and all that kind of stuff, have always really, really loved the characters that you make and really loved the way that you play them, knowing that those are two separate categories that you are very good in. And I'm always just like truly tickled. You always have such what it seems to be a very clear idea of who your character is, how they would react to things, what they would think about things. I am always blown away, maybe more than anyone else at the table or many other people I've ever even played with, to always make an in-character choice or comment because you are so well rooted in your character. So I was really curious, when you are looking to create a character, where do you start, and kind of what's important to you when you go about creating who that next character is going to be?
I would say I don't think I've approached it the same way anytime, and I think I've gotten better at it.
I mean, right? Everyone would, of course.
For Umbra specifically, I was like, I don't want to deal with any of this spell nonsense. That's too complicated. I built Umbra of like, I'm going to show up to the table. Because you said that, I think, when we were starting character creation of like, or starting the campaign of like, hey, you know, if your goal is to show up and play and then log off your brain afterwards, that's fine. That's cool. And I was like, great, I'm going to play a barbarian.
Good news. Check and check.
And then as I got more comfortable playing that game and wanted to do more things in game, I was like, well, fuck, Umbra has no reason to talk to anybody.
Yeah, right. I made her too good at being angry all the time. Damn it.
Yeah. And then I was like, well, there's got to be some story explanation. Like, I don't know, let's make her a paladin.
Shove some paladin levels on top of her. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it worked out wonderfully. It's still one of my favorite stories in D&D gaming. When it came to building Val, I don't even remember, because we were talking about building characters for 400 million years.
Yeah.
You know, what kind of drew you in the Val direction? Because she's, well, very different than your last character, certainly, but is also, again, such a very specific character, has such specific goals and perspectives. What did you go in kind of wanting to get out of that character building experience?
For Val, I will admit that I was inspired by Critical Role of Jester and Caduceus. And they always seem to be able to be very versatile. I like having a lot of options.
Yeah, totally.
In my life, in everything.
Yep.
And so a cleric seemed like a good way to get into a spellcaster that wasn't limiting. There's a lot of paths, there's a lot of domains open to a cleric. You can really do anything with a cleric.
Absolutely.
And I really like that I don't have to choose spells.
Yes.
That's garbage.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to all the people who play wizards out there.
You just have spells, and if you want to swap one out, you can. If you're like, I need to be able to breathe water today, but like generally you have your spells and they're the ones you've picked, and then you just kind of go. Yeah.
For Val, I had a very specific inspiration person in mind, which was Peggy Carter. I always call her Maggie for some reason because I'm like, her name is Margaret, but her nickname is Peggy.
Yeah.
And I said that in like our opening talk one, and I was like, David, we have to fix it. And he's like, no, we're not editing that out. It's like, damn it.
The fans are going to drag me for this. They'll think I'm a fake Peggy Carter fan.
Yeah. I think when we had like our initial like character playtest, I was like, she can't be Peggy Carter. Peggy Carter is like, you know, the ultimate form I want my character to take.
Yeah, definitely.
But she's not there yet. She's level 1. Like, you know, she's got to earn.
Yeah, she's got to build to there. Yeah.
And so that was like character creation inspiration wise. But I think the reason I'm able to play my characters so well is because they're me, just like one dimension that I focus on, and then expand out from there, and inspiration from other places where it's like Umbra is just like kind of the lazy version of me. Where it was just like
100%. Yeah.
Nah, I'm going to be that person who's not there for the group projects. I'm just going to show up, do the bare minimum and then I'm out.
Right. You know what I'm here for. Point me in that direction. I'll do it. And then we'll just kind of go from there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then I'll just be eating jerky in the background.
Yeah, exactly. Pete's Meats will have dropped by this time. This interview is out. Everyone will know the good news.
Pete's Meats. And then for Val, I hate to say it, she's like the manager version of me.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally.
And I think Jonathan was talking about it, of how like Val seems to be like a natural leader. And I realized that too late. And I was really trying to like push Cass into that. And I was like, dang it.
No, because I caught the same thing. And I think you and I think we're both weirdly equally the same amount of surprised. And obviously, I'm sure you were a little bit more in that Val lives in your brain. And you have a bit more, one-on-one time with Val. But as soon as Jonathan said that, I was also like, oh, I guess so. Do you say that Val is manager you in retrospect? Or did you go in, again, I'm not saying specifically like, I am doing manager Sophie for this character. Yeah. But, is that something that you would have been able to identify early on? Or is that just something that has kind of come out and shown itself throughout play? Definitely
something that's just come out and shown itself. I didn't necessarily have personality traits for Val picked out, more her backstory.
Totally.
And yeah, so I had like the backstory of she comes from this order that in my mind is a little bit based on the Kingkiller Chronicles University Academy.
Yes, absolutely.
Is it called the Academy? This is not important. It's just like, I'll look it up later.
Yeah, again, we'll put it in post. We'll do a little ding, and be like, the answer is.
When we were in character creation, it was the start of what are your sources, the whole misinformation era started kind of thing.
Yeah.
And for me, I really wanted a character that's where I drew my inspiration from, of my character is
really interesting,
dedicated to spreading knowledge that is tried and true, is proven, and it's not a secret. Her whole order wants to educate people, not to tell them necessarily what's right or wrong, just like have this information, and hopefully it makes your life better. Hopefully you can use it how you see fit and give it to as many people who want it.
Yeah. I have been really impressed and pleased at how well you have walked that line always with Val. Oh, well, actually, let me explain this to you. But Val is always just like trying to find whatever in she can to be like, well, let's have a conversation to checkers, to whoever it is that may, to square dwarf children who might need a science packet, to whatever.
Yeah.
What are your kind of like goals when you kind of sit down to play Val? Like, is there a headspace that you kind of get into or like to get into other than manager Sophie, I guess?
I don't come to the table as manager Sophie.
Right.
She just shows up.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of chaos at the table. Right. Exactly. There's a lot of chaos at the table, and sometimes it needs to be managed, and it can go in. I understand 100%.
I hate that. I was talking to David about this actually, where I don't want to be the parent of this group.
Right.
I was talking to David about the dirt, and I was like, Sophie, am getting frustrated by this dirt, and I can't play it as Val because I don't know if I can't separate myself from Val in this moment about this dirt. It's not important.
about the dirt on the roof that is happening.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I was like, I'm just going to let it go. We'll figure it out next session. Sorry, listeners. I don't know what you know about the dirt.
Yeah, they'll know.
It's not important.
By the time this comes out, I think they'll know about the dirt.
Just know, Sophie was getting, I don't know why, frustrated about the dirt.
Sometimes it happens. I understand deeply and completely.
Mm-hmm. But like, that's to say, I didn't intend for Val to, and like, I say manager Sophie because I had a real struggle when I first became a manager, and I like figured it out towards the end. I no longer manage people. My team was phenomenal. But I had to do a lot of like personal reflection in that role.
Yeah, of course.
And I know I joke about Brene Brown. I don't know how many make that into the episode.
I don't either. I'm not in charge. Neither of us are in charge of that. So, but also Jonathan and David have both been talking about Brene Brown a lot the last couple of weeks. So if you keep making those references, more might make it in.
Yeah.
Just based off of the way the winds are going.
But her book, Brave of the Wilderness, was like what helped me. And it's the Search for True Belonging, which is not a manager book at all, but that's the book that helped me become better as a manager, because it helped me say like, no, this is me. This is what I'm going to stand up for. This is how I'm going to handle the situation, because I know myself. And I think that's what comes out in Val.
I agree 100%. It's also very funny. Even we had a meeting yesterday and we were all joking about how much corporate lingo and mindset had, weaseled into our brains. We're talking about our Q1 goals for the podcast, and we all wanted to die, but also whatever. But I will say, someone hearing you say manager, Sophie, right, can have one idea of like, yes, no, I am professional person, manager of feelings and emotions, Sophie. But definitely for me, what I experience at the table with you and with Val and manager Sophie and all the Venn diagrams of those three therein is very, I think you put it beautifully, of this is who I am and this is what I stand for. And I am going to find ways to meet you where you are, whoever you are, and try to make a connection with you and try to build something together, basically.
Yeah.
And like, yes, that is definitely, like you said, a part of being a manager, but it's not like I am the manager of of the Golden Tree Guild.
Yeah. I think that also comes from Val having a more practical knowledge, where it is
true. Fair.
Not of like, read this book and you'll have the same knowledge. I will. Her family, especially her mom, was, I'm going to walk you through this. I'm going to like elbow to elbow. We're going to build this thing together. We're going to do whatever mostly hands-on task. And that's how I imagine it in my mind, the illustrious Atheum. That's how it is.
Yeah.
And there's definitely a library. There are definitely, some in the order who might only read and gain knowledge through books, and there's definitely lecture halls and all of that.
And Val gets plenty of knowledge through books.
Yeah, but that's not how most of the world learns.
Yeah.
And in order to go out and spread that knowledge, it has to be maybe like an oral lecture where, she's just talking to somebody. And I think that's more important to her to have that connection.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I got like a little salty about Giannis, because we said it in game. He was the complete opposite of it. And I was like, you fucker.
Yeah. Giannis, I had many ideas of what Giannis could be, you guys. And we talked about it in the Patreon bonus episode of how you guys forced my hand and brought him in early. And I was so delighted at how immediately every single person in the party was like, oh, that guy sucks, both for me personal reasons, for story reasons, and for reasons where I can see it's also affecting this other guild member. And now we all hate him. He's not evil, but we hate him. It's really interesting to me, and especially as you're kind of talking about the kind of themes that you're kind of bringing to your characters, to your play, that kind of thing. What kind of stories, just generally, it doesn't need to be tabletop stories, of course, but of books, of movies or whatever, what kind of stories do you enjoy reading or listening to or consuming otherwise?
I have been solely consuming romance novels.
Yeah.
For a while. You say yep because your wife and I are in the same,
because my wife is also in the same
romance novel book club group. Thanks, Emily.
Yep. Thanks, Emily.
You're not listening.
I'm sure devoted listener Emily. Hello. A shout out that will be heard.
Yeah. So yes, I have been probably for the last 6 months
at least, I think,
only reading romance novels.
Yep. Same with Jenna.
I love this genre because in order to be considered a romance novel, it has to have a happy ending. perfect pandemic book genre.
Yes.
Has to have a happy. I remember.
Same.
Emily suggested a book that was called Whiteout. It's about this cook and like lead scientist who get stranded in Antarctica and they have to like trek across the continent and they fall in love. You might have heard about this because I just texted the whole group of like, this did not have a happy ending. How is this possible? This whole genre is a lie.
There are rules for a reason.
Yeah. And Emily was like very calmly being like, well, it's part of a trilogy, so the trilogy will have a happy ending. And I was like, you preface this book with that. I am not okay.
Yeah, exactly. I don't need a 3 books from now happy ending. I need this happy ending right now. Please, God.
Yeah. But prior to 6 months
to the both peer pressure and emotional emergency of happy endings, and also of just like, well, this is kind of fun.
I really like sci-fi. The Martian I thought was really great, but
I just rewatched it. It made me so happy.
I did not like the movie.
I get that.
I mean, it was a good movie. It's always hard to translate like inner monologues and feelings, and that was so much of the book. It was personal,
all the book,
right?
Basically.
Yeah, and that's actually why they don't really do romance into movies, because romance novels are like the characters just talking to themselves about how much they like the other person.
Yeah, that
like,
makes sense. Yeah, totally.
Can't do it.
And then you just have to go with what's his name? Oh my God, in Pride and Prejudice.
Mr. Darcy?
Mr. Darcy's hand flex. And then you have to be like, well, you don't understand. It's actually, there's a lot of contextual layers here of the feelings that he's feeling, but there's just a hand on the screen.
Exactly.
So yeah, that makes sense. But so what kind of sci-fi stuff have you enjoyed?
There was one book I really loved. I think it was called like the Bobiverse, where
am I familiar with that? Anyway,
like a software engineer signs up to be like cryogenically frozen after like selling his public company, and then dies like suddenly and wakes up as an AI, I believe, in the future. And he is like trained for a little bit, and then he's like shot out into space in a satellite and with some like 3D printers and fabricators on board, and he has to like fight other AI satellite intelligences like for control of the universe. And it's way more fun and jaunty than I'm describing it, but it is delightful.
I could see that there's a big scattershot breadth of possible tones there, and funny definitely makes sense. Or again, swashbuckling, jaunty, whatever. Yeah.
And then I did enjoy the King Killer, but yeah, so probably would say like sci-fi fantasy are the other books and genres I like.
Do you have a sense as to what of those genres really interests you or excites you as opposed to anything else? You know, is there something where like, oh, I really like this aspect of sci-fi, of fantasy or whatever that kind of brings you back to those genres, or of romance for that matter?
I mean, you can have sci-fi and fantasy and romance. You can really have
absolutely true.
Anything.
Anything goes, except happy endings.
Yeah, they stay. I think with sci-fi and fantasy, what I really like about them is there are no rules.
Yeah.
Anything is possible. And like with the Bobiverse, he was able to make anything. He created worlds and had all of these possibilities. And I think one reason I really did like it, because it also compared like other AIs have the same options, and they went a completely different route.
Did not take those options.
And spoiler alert, he saves humanity. But he did not have to. Yeah. With sci-fi and fantasy, for sure, I do like that there can be surprises. And you know, The Martian was not too different, but it was new ideas and like figuring things out.
Yes.
And
that makes sense.
With an author who's just like, I don't know what happens if you shoot an AI into space, like figuring it out and figuring out
pulling
what
on
happens.
the threads. Yeah, I love that.
Sometimes it goes horribly wrong. Sometimes I'm just like, nah, I am not here for it. I'm out. But most of the time I will stick through it to see what happens.
Yeah. It's kind of at the unfortunate part of the interview where like I've gone through the naturally branching questions, which is also weaved through many of the other prepared ones.
Yeah.
And now I have other questions that I need to ask you, but don't necessarily make for like a nice fun, like, well, now that you mention that, I'd actually like
natural transition.
So like, I'm sorry to both you and the listener, Sophie. You'll just have to bear with me.
Well, we'll just make this a hot toddy refill break. And,
right. Exactly.
Cut it now.
Everyone grab your, pause and come back with whatever warm beverage is next for you. Something I wanted to talk about, and obviously we started the interview talking a little bit about it, but I'm really interested in your perspective, and I'll be asking David this too, but playing with your husband. I don't mean that in a playing with your husband, like elbow that guy kind of thing, but in a relationship sense. What has that been like for you, especially because you started playing together very early in your relationship, at least relatively speaking.
Basically immediately, I think.
Very, very early in your relationship, and are still doing it now, and have been doing it at the same table for not all of it, but a huge percentage of it, and are still doing it and are doing it recorded now and all that kind of stuff. So I was curious about what that experience has been like, not just kind of week one, cool hanging out with cute David, who we all agree is cute David. That's his nickname here on the podcast. The listeners might not know that. David might not know that. But all the way to now, what is that experience like? Not just playing with this same group that we've been playing with, but specifically playing with David, who you are also around all the rest of the time by your own choice.
It's pretty great being around him.
Being around cute David.
Yes, cute David. I guess if it doesn't feel very different than like playing with somebody else, because we're not husband and wife, like not intentionally, but like we don't come to the table as that. And I'm very curious to hear what he has to say about this.
I will. I guarantee you I will edit out from either of your interviews in case it's like, oh no, what David said is going to be very hurtful.
I don't think it would be. And I think that's actually probably why it's worked very well is we are very honest with each other in everything except secret car snacks, because car snacks aren't a thing. They don't exist to the other person.
Yeah.
No rules.
But in a way, isn't that the most honest thing? I need to be honest with you. Don't even think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Don't question why there's a McDonald's wrapper in the car.
Don't worry about it. That's not important.
Not important. But yeah, we're very honest with each other, and it might have been because we started playing when we were so new in the relationship.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't have any different expectations of David at the table than I would have of anybody else. Like we are not on the same team necessarily. Our characters are fine to disagree.
Your characters often hated each other last campaign, in fact, and it was wonderful.
Fucking Baron.
Everyone hated David's character. Maybe even sometimes David. And you maybe most of all.
Yeah. I think we had some conversations driving home from your apartment of like, why the fuck would the Baron do this?
And I would say those are reasonable questions for both the Baron and David. Why did you make these choices that have pained all of us so deeply?
Yeah. Most of the time it was just like, I don't know, I thought it'd be fun. And,
yeah, absolutely.
He really just comes in to have a good time, not at the expense of anyone else.
No,
and
absolutely.
He is a little devilish isn't the right word.
There's an air of chaos that he each of you have your own occasional brands of chaos that you bring, and I would say
David's is for the meme.
David's is for the meme. I hadn't decided what I was going to say, but that's the correct answer. Is Jonathan's is there for drama and for fun and like let's throw a curveball and just like see how everyone reacts to it and like give people a chance to like bounce off. And Steve's particular brand is chaos is like, well, I'll just spice things up. I'll make things interesting for people and I'll like liven things up. And David's is for the meme. David's is for the meme. I would say you probably bring the least chaos. I'm trying to imagine.
Umbra brought some chaos. Val hasn't yet.
I think the chaos that you bring is the principles that your characters have, at least for the two characters that I've played the most with, is that like both of them have perspective and a specific perspective, and you are not ever in a malicious or unfun way, but you are always willing to step up and be like, this is what my character thinks, and like you all have to bring me along. And I, Sophie, of course, want to keep playing Dungeons and Dragons and go forward, but like Val, though, you're going to have to really talk to Val.
I think there was several instances where Umbra was just bribed with jerky.
Yes. You don't need to think that. That is confirmed.
5 times.
At least 5 times. Or jerky or the promise of a big scary monster that she got to go fight and add a cool tattoo to her arm about. And so, David is for the memes. Yeah. Absolutely.
And I will clarify, I love that about him.
Yeah, right. We would not be playing with David if we did not appreciate the memes. Like, we've been playing together again. You have been playing together for 6 years. Yeah. We have been probably playing together for at least 4-ish. Yeah. We need to figure out exactly when that is. We have before, and I already lost count. But no, we would not be playing with David if we did not enjoy the memes. Yeah. And enjoy the glee and devilishness with which he delivers the memes, where he will always...
mischievousness.
Yes, and he will look you in the eye and be like, I'm about to do a meme.
Yeah. He has a very specific smile.
Yes.
Saying this as his wife. It's like, oh, you're about to do something.
Yes. Something is brewing over on that side of the table. And it's going to be wonderful and terrible all at the same time, won't it? Okay, cool. Yeah. Yep. All right. Good. Whatever. Has you playing together, and it's interesting because you guys have, like you said, been doing it basically since the beginning of your relationship. Has that colored your experience with him or your kind of view of him over the years, do you think? Because I've played with Jenna a little bit, and in those small snippets, I feel like I saw a different side of my wife. Is there anything that you have learned or seen in playing with David, or learned about him, or anything like that over the years at the table?
I think the way he approaches D&D is a lot like how he approaches most things in his life, where he's going to dive in, he's going to research everything he can and really see what the best option is. I think he's definitely stepped back from min-maxing. I've not been in a campaign where he's not going to like mismatch stats.
Right. He's not going to, let's not go crazy, but he's not going to find, sand down the edges to ensure maximum velocity of his builds.
Yeah, exactly. But he is going to spend a lot of time researching it so that when he comes to the table, he will not have, and we talked about it, he will not have the backstory. He will have every single number in place and then be like, oh, right. There's role playing.
Right. Exactly. There's role playing to this role playing game, not just game.
But I think that has definitely also changed each campaign we've done. And it's been fun to talk to him about that and what I do for Val and then what he's done for Kaskrin. I didn't know what he was going to do for Kaskrin, but I think we had talked about finding a small thing. It doesn't have to be big. Just like, what's one small thing about Kaskrin, and just grab onto that and go for it. And then Kaskrin has slippers and high thread count sheets, and I love it.
I already loved Cass a lot for a lot of reasons, and then that happened, and I was like, no, I'm like deeply in love with Kaskrin.
Right.
Like I am with all the characters, but like that was the specific moment of like, yes, this is perfect.
And like I had no idea. I was not like, give him slippers, but I was just like talking about my process, and like we've both learned from that, and like I've learned a lot about D&D mechanic or role playing mechanics from him. Again, I'm just like showing up some of the time, but a lot of his deep lore knowledge has slightly rubbed off on me.
Yeah, totally.
Of learning that.
Do you have a one thing for Val like that, or have you started with that kernel now 3 years ago or whatever, and it has now grown into a huge fertile crop, and it's like, well, yeah, I had a seed at one point, and I don't really have it or need it anymore.
I think the seed for Val was giving knowledge freely.
Yeah.
And then as we've role played, like I have like a 5-page document that I answered of all of your questions.
Yes.
But I don't think any of it is relevant anymore because
there's still, I was actually surprised when I was getting ready that there's actually still quite a bit that works pretty well, at least tone and perspective wise. But
I think more of it is changed at the table, like discovering or maybe really realizing that Val has to be very personable and not necessarily very charismatic. She's not charismatic in a bard sense, I guess.
Right. Or when you're standing up, you're not like, ooh, I'm putting on a show and I'm like engaging you and I'm grabbing you and I'm, I'm specifically, speaking to each of you and commanding a room.
Right.
But like Val always meets people, again, works to reach out to people.
Yeah. And I think that more came from playing at the table and I guess doing the homework, for lack of a better term, the questions you asked us in character creation, which I find very helpful.
Good. I always worry. And I know, well, I always worry, especially because I know that the Zangs will just do whatever. But like, oh, cool, more things for us to fiddle with and think through. And I also am like, well, I'll put this out there because I'm anxious and worried and like, well, I have to include everything and make sure everyone's happy and comfortable. But then also get carried away in doing that. So it's like, well, I hope Steve and Sophie enjoy doing it too. And you guys both like delivered also these like epic, awesome things for that.
I would be very curious to just know the difference. Like, I don't want to see Jonathan and David's work, but it's just like, what's like the difference between, and I feel like this is an appropriate grouping, Jonathan and David versus mine and Steve's.
Yes, that is a deeply appropriate grouping for sure. And there's nothing like secret or like shameful, but you and Steve both definitely sat down and went through it and like really were intentional and like, this is what I'm doing right now. And, kind of like thinking through it and processing things. And as I recall, David and Jonathan were a lot more, okay, cool, we have this side chat with Nathan, so like once every 3 hours, I'm going to throw a 1-sentence idea
that
out.
Sounds actually very accurate.
And then we'll talk about it for 2 hours, and then there'll be an hour of downtime, and then I'll throw out another sentence, and then we'll talk about that for a little while. And then I actually don't even remember if I got a firm, large document. I think I did, but not, I specifically remember yours and Steve's, and have referenced them many times, and I don't know if I remember if I got one or what theirs looked like from them, but also obviously they thought a lot about it. My last question that I wanted to do before the lightning round of questions is, and we've talked about it a little bit in this interview already, and I think I have some ideas, but do you have any creative tabletop role-playing game like heroes or mentors? Is there anything that when you look back and you kind of look at yourself as a role player now or the role player that you want to be that, has been a really big influence on you?
Well, over the pandemic, I have watched all of campaign 1 and 2 of Critical Role.
Did you start campaign 1?
No, I started campaign 2 and then they were making inside jokes. And then I was like, well, I have to understand these inside jokes. And so I went back and watched campaign 1, which was hard. That is, I love Critical Role, but that is not high quality video.
No.
And like, if you come in at campaign 2 and their beautiful set and all the work they put into that, I was just like, oh, this is where they started? Cool. How did they start with so many subscribers?
I could have sworn that you had been watching
I got into it because Steve suggested it.
Really?
Steve made us watch the Sam Riegel video and all of his awesome bard songs.
Yeah. Okay. I remember. Oh, that's so.
I hadn't started watching it before
really?
then. Mm-hmm.
I knew that you hadn't necessarily started watching when we started playing together. Anyway, back
so
to the actual.
That's what I did over the pandemic.
So Critical Role,
yeah.
for example, is there anyone in particular on Critical Role that you mentioned a couple of characters already, but is there any particular players or characters that you really look to as like I like this person because of this reason, or I try to emulate this person?
I love Ashley Johnson because that was Umbra for me, where it was just like she's gone half the time for Critical Role. She's on her TV show, but it was just like she's gonna show up, play, and be like, "What's happening? Oh, I kill it," and then like be gone.
And then cool, I have done my duty.
Yeah, and then as I said, Laura Bailey with Jester and Taliesin with Caduceus. They were so different in clerics, and Laura Bailey is her own chaotic goddess.
Yes.
I liked that one class could be so different.
Yeah.
Though I feel like myself as a player is definitely Travis.
Got it.
I am definitely a Travis.
Okay. From what I have seen, yes. I think that makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways. I'm curious, what do you think makes you the Travis of the group and of role playing?
I think it's more of our like approach to the game where it's like I'm here to have fun and do this, and I know what's going to happen on my turn. I might be a little bit better at Travis than that. Just recalling like things
that you can do.
Yeah. But I feel like we were both like, cool, I'm gonna show up to the game, and I haven't been every 5 minutes DMing the DM and talking about things, but coming to the game and being present and having a good time, and not necessarily like being so mentally aware of all of the mechanics and rules and numbers, but more so this is what my character would do.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And I also think being present at the table is the perfect way to put that. And I think you both are also very big cheerleaders for other players at the table, and make a lot of character choices in a way that enables other characters to make additional choices on top of that. That makes a whole bunch of sense to me. At the risk of going on any longer, even though I have many other questions that I want to ask you.
They can be part two.
Yeah, genuinely have already, literally, I haven't recorded too many of these, but I've recorded enough where it's like, listening back and editing them, it's like, I wish I'd asked this, didn't get to ask that. Really talked about that a long time, damn it. And I've already been like, I think I'm going to have to bring back all of these people for another one, including us. But it is lightning round question time.
Okay.
As I tell everyone, one-word answers, totally valid.
That's going to be hard.
An answer of, well, I don't really know, is totally fine. I'm also trying to hold myself to, like, I'll ask a couple clarifying questions, certainly, but I'm also fine if you just say, like, purple. And then that's it. I'll be like, okay, that is your answer. Then we move on.
I feel like we both know what my one-word answer is.
Yes, I do. And when I edit it, I'm going to leave that exact pause in, and maybe the listeners can guess. They'll know. Lightning round.
Okay.
Is your glass half full or half empty?
Full.
What excites you creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Possibility.
What does not excite you creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Dead ends.
What is your favorite sound?
I want to say there's a very particular laugh David has, but that sounds the different answer.
Nope, that's all valid and good.
Tempest video game. Is it the Tempest? There's one video game at Logan Hardware where you just like twist a dial around and you're shooting little. Is it called? I'm going to ask David. He'll know about this. I play this. This is the only game I play when we were there. But it's you turn a dial and shoot, and like the levels are different geometric shapes.
Okay.
But when you spin the dial like really quick, it's just like, and it makes this really cool and like a sound I personally can't make.
But that sound.
Yeah.
What sound do you hate?
Metal, scraping metal. I can't. I hate it.
Yep, that's a good one. What's your favorite word?
Boondoggle.
Ooh. What is your least favorite word?
Gypped.
Ooh.
I subbed out gypped for boondoggle.
Oh, that is your actual favorite word?
I didn't know the source, the root of gypped.
The unfortunate dark backstory of the word gypped. Absolutely.
I was listening to Braving the Wilderness, and Brene Brown explains the history of that word. And so boondoggle is similar.
So it's just your new favorite word is
it's a recent substitution, so it's fresh on my mind.
What tabletop role-playing game or D&D monster have you not faced or run as a DM? And I know you've DM'd a little bit before, but what one of those have you not been able to face or run that you would love to?
You all completely avoided my army of mushroom people. And I was real sad about that.
There was an army of mushroom people?
Yeah, because I found them in the monster manual.
Yeah, when was this?
In the Terra Nova one shot.
In the dinosaur one shot
I ran.
There were mushroom people?
There were mushroom people, and nobody. I was telling David this recently. In the corner where like the wall was ripped out, like what exploded in the lab led to mushroom people. And then
what did we do?
the generator got turned on because you split the party and 2 people were investigating the lab, and you didn't get to that back corner before the other 2 people turned the generator on, and my big dinosaur showed up. And you had to run out.
So mushroom people.
Mushroom people.
Okay. I love mushroom people. So like anytime that you want to run one shot, it's so fun. Oh, what's this mysterious mushroom in the corner? We'll make sure no one else listens to it before we run that. And then it'll just, I'll play along.
A Tarrasque. Like it's like a classic.
Yes.
And I don't have the experience.
Right. I've never faced one. I've never run one, but like.
Everyone's like, oh no, a Tarrasque goes up. And I was like, I know that's bad. I know it's not good.
Right.
But I don't know like the magnitude.
Right. And the feeling of how bad this is.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a great answer. What is your favorite adventure of all time? And it can be a tabletop adventure, or it can be an adventure in fiction, or it could be I really liked this stream story or this particular mini arc or anything like that. But an adventure that really struck home with you.
I ran the Mines of Phandelver for a group of my female friends that had no experience.
I remember you talking about this a lot as you were getting ready for this.
Yeah, really zero context whatsoever of D&D, and going into that as like one of my first times DMing was hard, but so fun. And they had a great time. We only did like 2 sessions, but as like a newcomer to D&D, I had David. I had like a guide.
Yeah.
David and Jonathan, and like everybody who was at the table with me was very helpful. But then it was just me, and I'm the only one with knowledge at this table.
And even if I remember it, like any context other than like D&D exists, and that's what we know.
Yeah. It's like, oh, God, I'm the source of truth. Okay. Let me just constantly keep the player's handbook open and like explaining certain rules and mechanics, and then just like blatantly not accepting it and be like, no. It was utter chaos in the best way possible.
Absolutely. What is your favorite TTRPG character of all time? And again, it can be one of yours. It can be one you played with. It can be one you watched, whatever.
I haven't watched. I've only really watched Critical Role.
Totally.
I don't know. I probably would have to say Umbra, because she has such a special place in my heart.
Absolutely. She has a special place in my heart as well, in case that is any validation.
Val will get there too. I'm already very deeply attached to Val.
But you're not, 2 to 3 years of play, of like weekly play invested in Val yet. That makes sense. Umbra's my favorite. I love Umbra so much. Final question. What gives you hope?
What gives me hope? Good friends.
Good answer. Sophie, thank you so much for joining me on this wonderful episode of Reckless to Talk. I really appreciate it. It was just as wonderful as expected. Thank you.
Thank you. This is great. Our roaring fire and our hot
toddies.
Our
roaring fire. We gotta. Excuse me, waiter. One more hot toddy, please. Just let's do another one. Another one for the table. Thank you again, Sophie.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.